TNT Open Mind Insights brings you powerful, authentic conversations, illuminating the path to better mental health care for all.
Jennifer, it's nice to meet you, and thanks for hanging out with me and talking with me a little bit about Project Hope Alliance and you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. And can you tell me a little bit about you? Everything, if you can, really. But if you could tell me a little bit about you and Project Hope Alliance and kind of what drives you to do this important work.
I guess first the driver is that I was one of our kids while I was growing up in Orange County. So I experienced homelessness with my family of 6. I have 3 brothers. I'm the only girl. Huh. And I was going to school in Huntington Beach and living in a motel in Garden Grove. And nobody knew about that. And so that was something that I kept to myself until I was 42 years old. Mm-hmm. To kind of back up a little bit, I have always been a type A, focused, high achiever kind of a gal.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons why I didn't necessarily have the strength at the time or the courage to be vulnerable about what I was going through is because I was very convinced that if people knew what my family's financial situation was, that they would somehow decide for sure that I wasn't good enough to actualize the dreams that I had for myself.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's really at 55, even to be here talking to you about this with the tremendous import of the fellowship program and everything that's being done. I still kind of pinch myself every once in a while. Mm-hmm. So I was one of our kids, but I grew up either living on the ocean front in Newport Beach or living at motels on Harbor and Beach Boulevard.
Wow.
And kind of keeping that to ourselves, I went to community college from high school and then transferred to UCI.
There we go, yeah. I hear they have some good professors there.
They have some great professors there.
All right, okay.
I also met my husband there.
There we go.
Apparently, like they have great students there as well.
That's right.
So I worked 50 hours a week, went to school full time. Mm-hmm. It took me 7 years to get through my undergrad because I had to take some pauses to make some money to be able to go back to school. And I'll never forget that my senior year at UCI, I had shared with a friend at school that I had grown up living in homelessness.
Yeah.
And she said, so you're a Pell Grant recipient, right? And I said, what's a Pell Grant? So no one ever saw me and thought even to inform me of these opportunities. So I was not able to be academically competitive while I was in undergrad because I was working so much.
Yeah.
And a lot of the youth at Project Hope Alliance are experiencing those same types of challenges. But then I found a law school that I could do in 2.5 years because I felt I was already behind the curve. So I went to law school, graduated in 2.5 years, made partner by age 38. And then I was a trial lawyer by trade. And then I heard about this organization called Project Hope, and it was the Project Hope School Foundation. And my brother and I decided to crash one of their board meetings. Their operating budget was about $30,000.
Wow.
It was a group of really good community members who knew that there were kids experiencing homelessness in their community. A teacher by the name of Ann Robinson had noticed kids were coming in and out of her classroom, wanted to know why. And she found out that it was because they were living in motels. And in Anaheim, there was an ordinance that required that they move out every 30 days. So they would move out.
Like from a motel?
Yeah, because you couldn't have it as a permanent place of residence.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember that.
You remember that as a kid?
Because we lived at the Tropic Motel for almost a year consecutively. Wow. So on the 30th day, we'd bag everything up in hefty bags, and then we'd go spend the night at our grandma's house. And then my dad would pay the motel manager to not rent our room for that night. And then we would go back on the 31st day back to our motel room.
Wow.
And so you can imagine the disruption that happens to kids in their educational journey, not to mention their social, emotional health and growth and well-being. So my brother and I decided that while no one knew of our story, we were in strong financial positions to be able to contribute, and we wanted to volunteer. So I walked in and just to find out what was up with it, and I walked out the secretary of the board.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah. So, and that kind of put me on a trajectory that ultimately ended up with me sharing my story of having experienced homelessness. And the response that I got was one of kind of like almost shock and awe.
Yeah.
Like, wait, you experienced homelessness? And I saw that the juxtaposition between this false narrative that people have created for themselves about what homelessness looks like, and the person that was standing in front of them was forcing them to actually contemplate the narrative they had created, and also, wow, how many other kids like Jen are invisible?
Yeah.
And
invisible.
That's what it is.
That's a strong word, particularly as a kid.
Yes.
Going to school
Yes.
and living in a motel, having to move out every 30 days. Wow. But first of all, I want to say thank you for sharing that with me and whoever's listening. That's a lot, and as you talk to me about that, I'm just trying to feel what that may have been like. It's hard for me to do that. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience as a kid in school and what that was like for you, and not being able to tell your teachers, probably your friends, I imagine, and what was that like for you?
I think that the word invisible is something that, as I've been on this journey of kind of self-reflection and also quite candidly, just even opening that box. So I had to really put it in a box and put it away. And sometimes it would pop up when I would feel imposter syndrome. Yeah. And then I would look behind it. But as a kid, I felt really like my needs were a luxury.
Jeez.
Early parentification is something that is very, very real in the lives of kids experiencing homelessness and youth in particular. So, my brothers and I would sell strawberries on the side of the road so that we would have money for food. Yeah. My dad was an entrepreneur, so that's why I grew up economically schizophrenic. Yeah. I know that that's not but that's the best way that I can explain it, because people would come to my house that was in a nice upper middle class neighborhood. So they would see that, and then we would take really good care of the things that we had purchased, like clothing, when we had money. And then we would just tell people that we were house sitting or doing a remodel of a house in Garden Grove, and that's why people couldn't come over. But in the meantime, we're washing our clothes in the bathtub, and jeans don't dry overnight. No. So you show up and you can smell that your jeans smell a little bit like musty. Yeah. You are trying to study for a math test with, 3 basically almost Irish triplets running around in a 214 square foot motel room. So that's not really going to happen. No. I already was math challenged, so adding in that was not going to help it. I remember one time this teacher, so I was doing my homework on the carpet of the motel room, and my pencil kept going through the paper. And I turned in my homework, and the teacher held up my assignment in front of the class and said, "This is what it looks like to turn in something when you don't care about the quality of your work." Oh, and wow. I can't say...
And you obviously cared very much about the quality.
I cared a lot. Yeah. I mean, I was doing the best that I could do at the time. Yeah. And the fact that I went back to get my high school transcript because I was having a conversation with my son about his educational journey in
Yeah.
high school. And I was trying to let him know that I empathize, and he was like, I don't understand why you are so emotional about, me not asking for help. And I said, this is my transcript. Look at this. No one, and you look at all of these D's in math and science, upper grades in AP English. I was winning awards in Model United Nations at Berkeley, at Georgetown, at Harvard, and not a single person with my graduating GPA weighted was 2.65.
Wow.
No one ever asked me, are you okay? So it clearly was invisible. And that's so jarring to me now to think that a student would be walking through high school and have such a disconnect between their academic ability and what's going on, and nobody asks if they're okay.
Yeah, God, it's horrible. I don't know if this applied to you, but almost my feeling when you talk to me about this is the word loneliness too comes up in my mind. Well, I know you had a small little place with a lot of people.
No,
but I mean, kind of like, who's listening to me? Who sees what's happening to me? And again, thank you for sharing that story. But I think it's important because you know much better than me that there's probably so many kids right now today in Orange County and outside of Orange County that are dealing with very similar things.
Oh yeah, I mean, in Orange County, we have identified over 32,000 students experiencing homelessness just in our K through 12 public education system. And the data tells us that for every one that's identified, there are 2 more behind them that are not.
Wow.
Nationally, we have identified 1.37 million students in our public education system that are experiencing homelessness. And to your point of loneliness, the data shows us that students experiencing homelessness, even when you control for every other variable, they're 40% more likely to have suicidal ideation, to have suicide plans because of loneliness.
Loneliness.
The sense of not being seen is something that is not only isolating and lonely, but it's dehumanizing.
Yeah.
And we have these 2 truths. One, our kids experiencing homelessness are only graduating at a rate of roughly 67%, while the number 1 leading indicator of whether or not someone will experience homelessness as an adult is if they've graduated high school. So a kid graduating high school is 400% less likely to be homeless as an adult.
Whoa.
So we know these things, and then we have the tension of this invisibility, but then we have the opportunity and the promise of all of these exceptional kids who, my brothers and I can reverse engineer the heck out of anything.
Yeah.
It's not surprising that, my 3 brothers went to college on full ride football scholarships, right from high school. One brother went to University of Pennsylvania, other went to Cal Poly SLO for civil engineering, other went to University of San Diego. I didn't play football, that's why I went to community college. But, when we show up, and that's really what Project Hope Alliance is focused on, is using education as that transformational tool to end generational homelessness by showing up for the whole kid exactly where they are. Because when we eliminate the barriers and fill in the gaps that homelessness causes, our youth are showing up. They're showing up anyway with the barriers and the gaps. But we're watching them soar and fly and dream and accomplish incredible things. So our graduation rate is over 30% above the national average.
Really?
Yeah. We're at 95%.
So tell me, what specifically is it that you do to help these kids? How do you help them?
Yeah, so we do everything from national advocacy, but our model of care, which is what all of our learnings derive from, is we place trauma-informed case managers with their own offices directly onto public high school and middle school campuses full-time. And they have a caseload. We've kind of played with the numbers, and each one has no more than 30 youth because we do life with them. It's non-prescriptive. We're there before school starts, we're there after school starts, and we're on call 24/7.
Oh, wow.
So there are times where the case manager may be driving to pick up a youth who had been couch surfing but then got kicked out of that place where they were couch surfing. So we're picking them up and finding them a new safe location. We're showing up in independent education plan meetings. We're showing up at suspension hearings. I've dusted off my lawyer briefcase and shown up in court a few times.
Wow.
We're really doing whatever it takes. And that sense of loneliness, isolation, and invisibility goes away when kids see someone consistently showing up for them and with them.
It sounds like it gives them hope. Right?
It does. And it makes it possible for them to just show up as themselves.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm a parent of 2 kids, and I think about the things that my husband and I do to create the opportunity for our kids to just show up as themselves.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference, you know? So we have food pantries, small food and hygiene pantries and clothing pantries inside of our offices. So sometimes kids may have not been able to go back to the motel because their parents maybe, I mean, I remember this, like you run out of gas money. It's literally a logistics issue. So you can't get back there, so maybe you're in the same clothes that you wore to school yesterday. So they can go into our office, get different clothes, brush their teeth, wash their face, put on some deodorant, get something to eat. But it's really that depth of relationship and the elimination of that sense of isolation and nobody knows me. When you feel like no one knows you, I don't really know how you work through or navigate the mental health challenges that come from living in homelessness.
Yeah.
And we drive our kids to therapy appointments. We pay for therapy. We drive them to doctor's appointments. We pay for co-payment, all of those things. Because one thing that's very true is a physician can have an outstanding treatment plan, but unless there's an execution plan, it's worthless.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels almost worse. I mean, I can remember this time I tried out for the school play. I was very excited about it. We lived at the Tropic Motel. After school, I told my parents, I got the part. And my mom had to tell me, and she was so heartbroken because my parents loved us tremendously. We were very blessed that way. But my mom said, we can't do it because we don't have the money for the gas that it's going to take to go for the rehearsals.
It's heartbreaking.
But that feels so bad. Like, why try?
Yeah, why
Like
even
that
try?
was the internal conversation I was having with myself in 7th grade. I remember it very vividly. I might as well just give up.
Yeah.
So when we look at why our youth are engaged in very risky behavior, they're looking to substances, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when you try and then something that's totally outside of your control is the impediment to you being successful, you do that enough times and run your head into the wall and you just kind of stop moving forward.
Are most of the students that you work with, are they totally homeless on themselves, with themselves, by themselves, or like you, are they homeless with their parents?
Most of them are homeless with their parents.
Okay.
We do have, and with everything that's going on right now in the current political environment with the ICE raids and those types of things, our unaccompanied youth who have mixed documentation status within households, that number is going up.
Oh, wow.
There are parents that believe that their children, and I can appreciate this thinking, that their children are safer if they go back to their country of origin and leave their kids to be able to access public education than if the parents stay because the children were born here. But most of our kids are living with parents or a primary caregiver. They're living in motels. They're sleeping in cars. We have a lot of families that are sleeping in cars.
Wow.
The shelter system is not. A lot of times is really unsafe for families. And it is also oftentimes not a dignity-based or a human-centered environment. And so parents would rather have their family together sleeping in a car than go to a shelter from
Yeah.
a safety perspective, and really trying to shelter their kids from seeing a lot of things that they would be exposed to at such an early age if they were in a shelter.
Yeah.
And a lot of our families are doubled and tripled up, meaning that you have only one family that's on the lease, but maybe you have a 2-bedroom apartment that has 3 families, as many as like 13 people, all living there, where they have a literal schedule for when you're allowed to use the bathroom, like only between these hours. So we have kids, even though they have a roof over their heads, they're not able to shower like often. It's really, it's very complicated. Homelessness is a very complex issue, and I think as a nation we've been trying to address, understandably, the consequences of a lot of different systems failures.
Yeah.
And it's been very focused on adults experiencing chronic homelessness. And we've been doing like a one-size-fits-all, which obviously does not work.
No.
And I feel like it is time to lift the invisibility, show up for our kids,
Yeah.
and let's unlock and unleash all of this amazing potential that they have, and make it so that they don't enter into homelessness as an adult, right? And then they'll just change the world. Think of all the learning. When they're a doctor,
Yeah.
they're going to approach the practice of medicine much differently. They're a psychiatrist, they're going to practice psychiatry from a much different viewpoint and lens.
It's a benefit to society at this point. It's not necessarily a benefit just to an individual, which is good too.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
it's a benefit to the society. When I hear Jennifer talk about this, what I'm hearing is there are multiple domains that are affected here. So there's hope that's affected. There's loneliness that's a problem. There's medical. There's just generalized demoralization. There's education, sub-optimized education.
Very much so.
And then there's behavioral health or mental health issues as well, among others. So, and legal probably.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and so, but there's so many things going on when I hear you talk about this. There's a lot. Because for me, as an adult, as an internist or psychiatrist, I see adults mainly who are homeless, and then the focus is on, let's get you a bed for the night.
Right.
Right? Which is good, but it's not going to fix anything. What
Right.
happens the next day?
Right.
And it's really sad to see. So here's my question for you. If you were to pick one thing that you could change, let's say in California, just a statewide thing, that could move this issue in the right direction. I know there's a lot of things that you would want to pick, but if you were to pick the thing that's at the top of the list, what would that be?
A unified definition of homelessness.
Okay.
We currently have it bifurcated. So the individual that you're talking about, under the HUD definition of homelessness, qualifies for different types of benefits, funding mechanisms, all of those things, because they're living unsheltered. And they've been unsheltered for, I believe it's 48 hours. Our kids, so we have the McKinney-Vento Act, which is the federal definition of homelessness for children and youth.
Okay.
And that includes things like living in a motel, being doubled and tripled up, couch surfing with no permanent place of residence,
Got it.
living in a garage. But guess what they don't have access to? All of the resources and all of the strategies and all of the systems that are being built out by HUD. So we literally have this divergent track, and then everybody ends up meeting at the end as adults experiencing homelessness. If we could unify that definition and start getting really strategic and say, how is it that we look at prevention while addressing natural consequences of not looking at prevention, and do it together, we can be more economically efficient, more productive, and we can stop the constant flow of increased homelessness. But we really can't do it until we have one definition, because people fight all the time and say, well, you don't really serve kids who are homeless.
Yeah.
And I say,
not if they're surfing on someone's couch.
I say, well, but did you read the law?
Yeah.
And do you think that just because they weren't looking at the direct stars last night, because somebody was kind enough and benevolent enough to let them sleep on their couch,
Yeah.
that they don't lack a permanent fixed
Yeah.
dwelling? So, I mean, that really, it sounds simplistic, but our government's been playing hot potato with this issue, because what's not simplistic is we have a scarcity mentality around funding,
Yeah.
as opposed to a problem-solving mentality. So
So-
that's my one thing.
Unification of the definition will lead to optimization and unification of a policy
And resources.
and resources, policy
And
that-
systems.
system change.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have another question for
Yeah.
you. So how
Yes.
do you do that? How do you unify the definition, which leads to unification, optimization of the policy and resources?
Well, the way we've been doing it is talking to legislators about some data analysis that was just done on our model of care, which shows that per year, every one of our youth that graduates high school adds $75,000 to the local economy.
Okay.
Okay, so people say, well, there's not enough money to add kids and families to our HUD definition of homelessness.
Yeah.
We would be overburdened and overtaxed. Well, my response is, actually, you will see a fiscal return that far exceeds the investment.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And another thing is really lifting the invisibility, because, you know, no one is fairly compelled to solve a problem that they don't know exists.
Yeah.
That's why I left my partnership. That was definitely not a good business decision. You know, I went home, and after hearing a sermon in church one day, and told my husband, yeah, so God wants me to be the CEO of Project Hope. And at the time we had one employee,
Oh.
served like 35 kids. You know, it was not a big organization. Yeah. It was the opposite of a big or organized organization. It was just, and my husband said, how much does that pay? I told him, and he's like, that's a 75% pay cut. And we had 2 kids. We had a mortgage in Newport Beach, like a house on a private road. Like, how does the math, wasn't mathing there. But I knew that's what I needed to do. So I did that.
Yeah.
And it was I'm so incredibly grateful to have done that. But I did it because I saw the way people responded to my story, and they didn't know what box to put it in. It made them feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and it made them be reflective. And I thought, I can use that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? There's power in a story.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a story sometimes I still feel like I, got punched in the gut. I still have to, deal with the emotional impact of, kind of, I call it therapy through immersion.
Yeah.
But if people know the issue and they can have some relatability to it, then hopefully they're driven to change it. So it's telling the fiscal impact narrative, which is very powerful and very compelling, and it's telling the human narrative.
So Jennifer, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk about all this stuff. And for me, again, I see a lot of folks who are homeless, but the perspective that you've presented here makes me think about it differently. I wasn't aware of some of the stuff that you were talking about and how it affects kids in schools. And I think it kind of excites me a little bit to work with you and to figure out how we can partner and maybe bring medical health and physical health, integrative health, to what you're doing as a team, and really building up some type of alliance or advocacy group in California, I would say, to start off with.
Yeah.
Later in other states, but California. So I'd like to ask you, how can people who are listening to this get involved with Project Hope Alliance? What can they do, like starting right now?
Yeah.
If someone's listening, they're like, I want to jump in and I want to help, like now.
Yeah.
What can they do?
So they can go to projecthopealliance.org,
Okay.
and then they can read up about the issue, and then they can become community champions.
Okay.
Because again, people are not compelled to solve a problem that they don't know exists.
Yeah.
And I have watched people who have done just that, where they took the time to understand the issue, ask questions, and then they go to a cocktail party and they're sharing the information. And the next thing that I know, we are touring a whole group of community activists to come to Project Hope, and we're going and doing different things. So that's one thing, becoming a community champion. It's critically important.
Okay.
Also though, if you're a parent, something that's very powerful is sharing with your kids the fact that there's a very strong probability that at least 3 individuals in their public school classroom may be experiencing homelessness. And how do we see and show up for each other?
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't have a sandwich, like,
Recognize it.
don't say, why don't you have a sandwich? Just be
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I don't even like this sandwich that my mom made, or whatever it is. Like, do you want some of my sandwich?
Yeah.
If they don't have their backpack, make sure that they have. So I think that leading up the next generation
Wow.
to lead in empathy, that invisibility piece, until we start actively dismantling it, is going to continue to be something that's paralyzing for our kids experiencing homelessness, because shame is a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
And isolation and feeling invisible, and once you don't feel that way. So I think educating our children in empathy about the issue. So maybe think about the way we're talking about homelessness. We're usually talking about homelessness exclusively around people who are struggling with mental health or substance abuse disorders, who are living on the street that we see when we drive to the grocery store. We're not talking about people who, a family, maybe each parent is working 2 full-time jobs, but they make minimum wage because they're undereducated. How does undereducation drive homelessness? Very significantly.
Yeah.
So that's something. And then, you know, we also need people to come in and share their own stories. And everyone's story doesn't need to be shared. It's very sacred that I have people that come up to me and they'll say that I went through this too. And they're like, I don't know that I could ever share the story. And I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
You don't need, everyone's not called to share the story, but if people do feel compelled, those types of examples for our youth are very powerful, because they can look to that and they can say, okay, they made it through.
Yeah.
They did that thing. And then remembering, how do we use the seat that we're in to bring others up with us?
Well, plus if we don't know we have a problem, then we're not going to work on the problem too.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I actually look forward to working with you.
I look forward to it too.
I think that there's a lot of good stuff we can do in California to address these issues, and I'm excited. Thanks for talking with me
Thank
today,
you.
Jennifer. Appreciate it. Thank you.